supreme personality of Godhead, or for the demons who do not like the idea that Krishna will be accepted as the supreme personality of Godhead. For them, only as required from this body. As if we were themselves not aware of the personality of God. As it will be evident from the 10th chapter, Arjuna knew perfectly well that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, the fountainhead of everything, and the last word in transcendence. Of course, Krishna also appeared as the son of Deity on this earth. How Krishna remains the same supreme personality of God and the eternal, original person is very difficult for an ordinary man to understand. Therefore, to clarify this point, Arjuna put this question before Krishna so that he can speak authoritatively. That Krishna is the supreme authority accepted by the whole world, not only at present, but from the time immemorial, and the demons alone reject him. Anyway, since Krishna is the authority accepted by all, Arjuna put this question before him in order that Krishna would establish himself without being depicted by the demons, who always try to distort him in a way understandable to the demons and their followers. It is necessary that everyone, for his own interest, knows the kind of Krishna. Therefore, when Krishna himself speaks about himself, it is auspicious for all the world. To the demons, such explanations by Krishna himself may appear to be strange, because the demons always study Krishna from their own standpoint. But those who are devotees hardly welcome the statements of Krishna when they are spoken by Krishna himself. The devotees will always worship such authoritative statements of Krishna because they are always eager to know more and more about him. The atheists who consider Krishna as ordinary man may in this way come to know that Krishna is superhuman, that he is Sachin Ananda Vigraha, the eternal form of bliss and knowledge, that he is transcendental, and that he is above the domination of the modes of material nature, and above the influence of time and space. A devotee of Krishna, like Arjuna, is undoubtedly above any misunderstanding of the transcendental position of Krishna. Arjuna is putting this question before the Lord is simply an attempt by the devotee to define the attitude of a person who considers Krishna to be an ordinary human being subject to the modes of material.
So this is a standard characteristic of those who are bona fide devotees of Krishna. The Lord's devotees cannot tolerate any misrepresentation of Krishna's position. So therefore, they will, at every opportunity, they will like to clarify Krishna's position. This explains why devotees of Lord Vishnu, they cannot tolerate something like Maya. Any misrepresentation of Krishna's position cannot be tolerated by them. Even this idea that Krishna is just like an ordinary human being, or he is just like some demigod. These things, they cannot handle this. So they, at every opportunity, they want this subject matter to be clarified. Krishna himself is an accepted authority amongst those who accept Vedic authority, and those who accept the authority of the Itihasas and Puranas, which clarify the Vedas. So therefore, Arjuna is doing this. 1 minute, let me just read out this one. The Lord said, no, okay.
How did Arjuna know that their conversation will be recorded? So he asked this question for the benefit.
First of all, it's done in the middle of the two armies. They're all here. And they are definitely, when Krishna is going to speak something so significant, it is also known that the sages are logging in. The sages have the power. For every incarnation, whenever the Lord incarnates into this world, human beings, they may not be aware of many things, but the sages, they know, because their sense perception is much more spread out. They can perceive. So even when the Lord comes as Ram, for instance, it is known that the sages will understand it. Like Valmiki at a particular point in time, he meditated in Samadhi and he saw all the activities. all the activities, even the events that took place privately. So whenever Krishna comes to this world, it is with the idea that those in the mode of goodness or those who are transcendental, they will see all these things. So Krishna's associates also understand that. Okay, text 5.
The personality of God is mine, but both you and I have heart. I can remember all of you, but you cannot. Who is a viewer of the need?
Shri Baladev Vidyabhushan. Though I am one, I have many eternal forms. This is confirmed by many statements in the Shrutis, such as Ekopi San Bahuda Yoga Bhati. Though he is one, he appears as many. As I hold many eternal forms within myself, like the Vaidurya gem, which displays many colors, I taught him, meaning I taught Vivaswan in another form previously. Intending to say this, the Lord speaks this verse. So he wants to clarify that I always exist in multiple forms. This is one feature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is one, but simultaneously he has multiple forms. There are monotheists all over the world, those who accept that there's only one Supreme Godhead. But they think that he is there only in one form. But from Srimad Bhagavatam, we learn that in the spiritual world, in God's own kingdom, Krishna is there as Krishna, in Vrindavan, in Dwaraka also, and then in Ayodhya as Ram, and as Narayana, and there are unlimited Narayana forms also. And Prabhupada refers to this as a planet. There are multiple planets in the spiritual universe. So simultaneously they are there. It is not that at one point in time they came out. They're all Anadi Ananta. They're all there. So when Krishna says that many births, both you and I have passed, it is not that Krishna also reincarnates according to the laws of karma. That is not the idea. Rather, Krishna simultaneously has multiple forms. And he manifests some and unmanifests. Manifests, unmanifests, and manifests and unmanifests. Bhakti Thakur, the Lord said, O Arjuna, conqueror of enemies, you and I have gone through many births. Since I am the Supreme Ishvara, I remember all of these. You being a jiva, a particle of consciousness, do not remember all this. When I appear in this world, you, a perfected devotee, take birth with me for nourishing the pastimes. But I alone understand everything, since I alone am the omniscient person. In the Brahma Samhita, we have information of many incarnations of the Lord. It is stated there, Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayavanancha Vedesha Durlabham Adurlabham Atmabhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajan. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead Govinda Krishna, who is the original person, absolute, infallible, without beginning. Although expanded into unlimited forms, he is still the same original, the oldest, and the person, always appearing as a fresh youth. Such eternal, blissful, all-knowing forms of the Lord are usually not understood by even the best Vedic scholars, but they are always manifest to pure, unalloyed devotees. Brahma Samhita again. Ramadimurta Shukala Niyamena Tishtan Nanavataram Akarot Bhuneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Swabhavat Paramahman Yo Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajan. I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead Govinda Krishna, who is always situated in various incarnations such as Rama and Nrsimha and many sub-incarnations as well, but who is the original personality of Godhead known as Krishna, and who incarnates personally also. In the Vedas also it is said that the Lord, although one without a second, manifests himself in innumerable forms. He is like the Vaidurya stone, which changes color, yet still remains one. All those multi-forms, means multiple forms, are understood by the pure unalloyed devotees, but not by a simple study of the Vedas. Devotees like Arjuna are constant companions of the Lord, and whenever the Lord incarnates, the associate devotees also incarnate in order to serve the Lord in different capacities. Arjuna is one of these devotees, and in this verse it is understood that some millions of years ago, When Lord Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita to the sun god Vidvan, Arjuna in a different capacity was also present. But the difference between the Lord and Arjuna is that the Lord remembered the incident, whereas Arjuna could not remember. That is the difference between the part and parcel living entity and the Supreme Lord. So in other words, even after you become liberated, you still don't become the Supreme Personality of God. There are still some eternal differences. You can put a light on in case you require. There is always a difference. For instance, Krishna could remember, but Arjuna could not. So that is something we should keep in mind. That is the difference between the part and parcel living entity and the Supreme Lord. Although Arjuna is addressed here as the mighty hero who could subdue the enemies, he is unable to recall what had happened in his various past births. Therefore, a living entity, however great he may be in the material estimation, can never equal the Supreme Lord. Anyone who is a constant companion of the Lord is certainly a liberated person, but he cannot be equal to the Lord. So this is a point that we will also understand later on, 15th chapter, that Krishna is superior to the liberated Jivatma, Krishna is superior to the conditioned Jivatma. So the Jivatma can only become perfect as a Jivatma. We can never become perfect as Paramatma. Eternally, we can only become a Mukta Jivatma. We cannot become Paramatma. We cannot become the Supreme Soul. The Lord is described in the Brahma Samhita as infallible, Achyuta, which means that he never forgets himself even though he is in material contact. Therefore, the Lord and the living entity can never be equal in all respects, even if the living entity is as liberated as Arjuna. Although Arjuna is a devotee of the Lord, he sometimes forgets the nature of the Lord, but by the divine grace, a devotee can at once understand the infallible condition of the Lord, whereas a non-devotee or a demon cannot understand this transcendental nature. Consequently, these descriptions in the Gita cannot be understood by demoniac brains. Krishna remembered acts which were performed by him millions of years before, but Arjuna could not, despite the fact that both Krishna and Arjuna are eternal in nature. We may also note herein that a living entity forgets everything due to his change of body, but the Lord remembers because he does not change his Sachidananda body. He is Advaita, which means there is no distinction between his body and himself. Everything in relation to him is spirit, whereas the conditioned soul is different from his material body. And because the Lord's body and self are identical, his position is always different from that of the ordinary living entity, even when he descends to the material platform. The demons cannot adjust themselves to this transcendental nature of the Lord, which the Lord himself explains in the following verse. So Krishna has pointed out that he has many births. Arjuna also has many births. But by being born, the Lord does not undergo any transformation. In other words, he does not experience Jayate, Asti, Vartate, the 6 transformations of the body. Even though he appears to grow from childhood, it stops at a particular point. And you will study in the Nectar of Devotion that Krishna ages up to a particular age only. After that, he does not. So from that itself, we understand that he's not actually growing old like us conditioned souls. Text 6.
Jo ahi sanatma bhutana ishvaro san prakriti swam adhishtaya sambhavami atmanavaya. Although I am unborn, I am considering the body remember the Buddha, and although I am the Lord of the living, or Lord of all living entities, I still appear in every living in my original transcendental form.
In speaking of the uniqueness of his birth and form, the Lord indicates his eternal nature. So his birth is unique, his form is unique. So therefore, the Supreme Lord points out that he exists eternally. In other words, Krishna exists eternally as Krishna. It is not that like Mayavadis would like to fantasize, there is an impersonal Brahman which takes on a form. It is not like that. Bhakti not Thakur. Though I and all of you come to the world repeatedly, there is a difference between my and your coming. I am the Ishvara, Lord of all things, without birth, Aja, and imperishable in nature. I appear in my Swarup by taking shelter of my own Chit Shakti. giving mercy to the jivas. But all the jivas controlled by Maya Shakti take birth in this world and do not remember their previous births. Taking shelter of the subtle body by karma, the jiva again takes birth. When I appear as a devata or in an animal form, it is by my independent desire alone. My pure spiritual body is not covered by subtle or gross bodies like the jiva is. I easily manifest in the material world I easily manifest myself in the material world with my eternal soul situated in Vaikuntha. If you say, how can a spiritual entity manifest in the material world? Then please listen. My Shakti is inconceivable and beyond all thought. Thus, whatever is done by that Shakti cannot be grasped by your reasoning. By natural knowledge, this alone you should understand. The Lord, endowed with Achintya Shakti, is not obstructed by any material law. If he desires, he can manifest in the material world easily and purely the whole Vaikuntha Tattva. Or reversing the whole of matter, he can bestow a spiritual nature. Is there any doubt that with Sachidananda form, beyond material rules, I manifest purely in full form when I appear in this material world? By whose Maya the Jiva moves, that is called my Prakriti. But one should understand that my personal Prakriti is the Chit Shakti. My Shakti is one, but near me it is a Chit Shakti, and near the Jiva bound by karma, it is Maya Shakti. In this way, I am endowed with various types of power. Single inconceivable potency of Krishna. But when she's in between the contingent souls and Krishna. When Krishna looks at her, he only sees the Yogamaya side, like a coin with two different sides. Whereas when the conditioned souls see, they only see the Mahamaya side. Here, the word Prakriti refers to nature or manner. I am indeed without a birth, which normally gives to a person a body caused by past karma. My intelligence and other elements are all without transformation. I am also the controller of all the jivas, all those beings other than myself. I appear in my form means I appear in my supreme form of knowledge and bliss with qualities such as being without birth, without transformation, and being the controller of all beings. And then Sri Baladevi Devotion gives evidence from Shruti, Smriti, that this is the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All people, even kings, with no desire for real knowledge, being ignorant, continue to take birth, giving up the previous body and accepting a new body according to karma. The Lord's birth is distinct from this. By stating that he is the Lord of all living beings, he also distinguishes himself from perfected jivas like yogis, who also do not take birth. The Supreme Lord, consisting of knowledge and bliss, though devoid of difference between his body and himself, between attribute and object, has been acknowledged by the wise to possess those distinctions as a Lord with qualities and body through the power of Vishesha, spiritual variegatedness. See here, the Lord speaks about his body as if his body is different from him. Okay. This is one feature of the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, there appear to be certain distinctions which don't exist. For instance, Krishna and Krishna's name is the same. But Krishna will also talk about the glories of his name as if it is different from him. Or he will talk about his body, like here he is saying that my body is transcendent, avyayatma. See, my body is without deterioration. He could have said, I am without deterioration. But he prefers to speak like this also. The Lord has spoken about the peculiarity of his birth. Although he may appear like an ordinary person, he remembers everything of his many, many past births, whereas a common man cannot remember what he has done even a few hours before. If someone is asked what he did exactly at the same time one day earlier, it would be very difficult for a common man to answer immediately. He would surely have to dredge his memory to recall what he was doing exactly at the same time one day before. And yet men often dare claim to be God or Krishna. One should not be misled by such meaningless claims. Then again, the Lord explains his prakriti or his form. Here, prakritim swam adhisthaya, which means being situated in my transcendental form. literally being situated in my Prakriti. But Prakriti means Swabhava, nature. Prakriti is not this material nature. One should not misunderstand this to mean that Krishna is situated in material nature, in Prakriti. He is situated in his own Prakriti. He specifically says, Prakritim Swam. Swam means my own. So he has his own Prakriti, which is different from the Prakriti that is manifest with the conditioned souls. That is different, this is different. Prakriti means nature as well as Swarupa or one's own form. So being situated in my own Prakriti means being situated in my own form or being situated in my own nature. The Lord says that he appears in his own body. He does not change his body as a common living entity changes from one body to another. The conditioned soul may have one kind of body in the present birth, but he has a different body in the next birth. In the material world, the living entity has no fixed body, but transmigrates from one body to another. The Lord, however, does not do so. Whenever he appears, he does so in the same original body by his internal potency. In other words, Krishna appears in this material world in his original eternal form with two hands holding a flute. He appears exactly in his eternal body, uncontaminated by this material world. Although he appears in the same transcendental body and is Lord of the universe, it still appears that he takes his birth like an ordinary living entity. And although his body does not deteriorate like a material body, it still appears that Lord Krishna grows from childhood to boyhood and from boyhood to youth. But astonishingly enough, he never ages beyond youth. At the time of the Battle of Kurukshetra, he had many grandchildren at home, or in other words, he had sufficiently aged by material calculations. Still, he looked just like a young man, 20 or 25 years old. We never see a picture of Krishna in old age because he never grows old like us. Although he is the oldest person in the whole creation, past, present, and future, neither his body nor his intelligence ever deteriorates or changes. We see this word, Avyayatma. The word Atma can also mean intelligence. So Avyayatma also indicates that Krishna's intelligence never deteriorates. Neither his body nor his intelligence ever deteriorates or changes. Therefore, it is clear that in spite of his being in the material world, he is the same unborn, eternal form of bliss and knowledge, changeless in his transcendental body and intelligence. Factually, his appearance and disappearance are like the sun's rising, moving before us, and then disappearing from our eyesight. When the sun is out of sight, we think that the sun is set. And when the sun is before our eyes, we think that the sun is on the horizon. Actually, the sun is always in its fixed position. But owing to our defective, insufficient senses, we calculate the appearance and disappearance of the sun in the sky. And because Lord Krishna's appearance and disappearance are completely different from that of any ordinary, common living entity, it is evident that he is eternal, blissful knowledge by his internal potency. And he is never contaminated by material nature. The Vedas also confirm that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unborn, yet he still appears to take birth in multi-manifestations. The Vedic supplementary literatures also confirm that even though the Lord appears to be taking his birth, he is still without change of body. In the Bhagavatam, he appears before his mother as Narayana with 4 hands and the decorations of the 6 kinds of full opulences. His appearance in his original eternal form is his causeless mercy bestowed upon the living entities so that they can concentrate on the Supreme Lord as he is and not on mental concoctions or imaginations which the impersonalist wrongly thinks the Lord's forms to be. Finally, we look at this word, Atmamaya, the last word. I appear by my Atmamaya, literally. I appear Atmamaya, by my internal energy. Atma, own, Maya. I appear by my mind. Okay. So the word Maya or Atmamaya refers to the Lord's causeless mercy according to the Vishwakosha dictionary. Maya also means knowledge. Maya also means mercy. So in that case, Atmamaya, coming from the word Atmamaya, will mean by my own mercy. So I descend to this world by my own mercy. The translations that Prabhupada provides in his books, that gives one meaning. But in the purports, sometimes you get additional meanings of the same verse. The Lord is conscious of all of his previous appearances and disappearances, but a common living entity forgets everything about his past body as soon as he gets another body. He is the Lord of all living entities because he performs wonderful and superhuman activities while he is on this earth. Therefore, the Lord is always the same absolute truth and is without differentiation between his form and self or between his quality and body. The question may now be raised as to why the Lord appears and disappears in this world. This is explained in the next verse. Text 7.
यदा यदा हि धर्मस्य ग्लानिर्भवति भारत लोकमानवधर्मस्य तदात्मात्मनात्मनि. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, coalition under Bharata, and a predominant rise of religion, at the time I disenchant myself.
When there is a destruction of the dharma that is taught in the Vedas and appearance of adharma, that is, adharma means that which is opposed to dharma, I manifest myself. Srijami aham. Tadatmanam srijami. Srijami comes from the root srij. The word srishti, creation, comes from the same root, srij. So then, one might be tempted to think that srijami aham means I create. But Krishna has already stated avyayatma. My atma is avyaya. Whether you take that word atma to mean body or intelligence, there are different meanings of the word atma. In all cases, it is avyaya. It is avyaya. It is inexhaustible. It cannot perish. That which cannot perish cannot take birth also. Jatasya hi dhruvam mrityu dhruvam janma mritasya. That which has birth will have death. That which has death will have birth. You cannot have something which only has birth or only has death. Okay. So then here, Atmanam Srijamyaham cannot be taken to mean I create my Atma. The phrase Atmanam Srijami cannot mean I make my body or I create my body, since the eternal nature of his body has already been established. Thus, there is no fixed period for my appearance, such as every 1,000 years. I want someone to read out Bhakti.
The principle concerning my appearance is this: I am independent. If I desire, I appear. Whenever there is destruction of dharma and rise of adharma, then I by my desire appear. All my rules for carrying out the universal affairs cannot be conquered, are without beginning, but due to time, when all these rules for some undefined reason are disturbed, then adharma becomes strong due to faults in time. To remove the faults, except me, no one is capable. Therefore, I manifest in the world with assistance of my Chitta Shakti and extinguish the dissipation of dharma. It is not only in Bharata that one can see me appear. I manifest by my will as necessary among all kingdoms, devata, animals, etc. Thus, I do not think that
No. Thus do not.
Thus, do not think that I do not manifest among the kingdoms of leechers and outcasts. If there is a destruction of dharma among those lamentable people who accept some dharma as swadharma, then I protect their dharma, becoming a Shaktavesh avatar among them. But in Bharat, since a swadharma is performed nicely, being related to varnashrama dharma, I take more care to establish dharma from all my citizens of those places. Thus, one will see attractive yuga avatars and amsha avatars in Bharat, where there is no varnashrama dharma, there nishkama karma yoga, its results jnana yoga, and the final result bhakti yoga are not practiced nicely. Thus, the bhakti which is seen to arise to some degree among the outcasts should be known as the sudden proliferation due to devotees' mercy.
So Krishna appears repeatedly to protect dharma. Prabhupada explains certain principles very, very nicely. The word srijami is significant here. Srijami cannot be used in the sense of creation to mean I create. Because according to the previous verse, there is no creation of the Lord's form or body since all of the forms are eternally existent. Therefore, Srijami means that the Lord manifests himself as he is. Although the Lord appears on schedule, namely at the end of the Dwapara Yuga of the 28th millennium of the 7th Manu in one day of Brahma, he has no obligation to adhere to such rules and regulations because he is completely free to act in many ways at his will. He therefore appears by his own will whenever there is a predominance of irreligiosity and a disappearance of true religion. Principles of religion are laid down in the Vedas, and any discrepancy in the matter of properly executing the rules of the Vedas makes one irreligious. In the Bhagavatam, it is stated that such principles are the laws of the Lord. Dharmam tu sakshat bhagavad pranitam. Only the Lord can manufacture a system of religion. Even then, Krishna does not actually manufacture it. He simply presents it again and again. Here. This here, this is 6.1.40. Yamadutas are speaking. That which is prescribed in the Vedas constitutes dharma, the religious principles, and the opposite of that is religion. The Vedas are directly the Supreme Personality of God in Narayana and are self-form. This we have heard from Yamaraj. So here, Prabhupada points out, dharma is not actually manufactured by Narayana, in the sense that it previously did not exist, and from now onwards, Lord Krishna creates it. It is not like that. As stated in the Vedas, Asya Mahato Bhutasya Nishvasitam Etad Yad Rigveda iti. The injunctions of dharma emanate from the breathing of Narayana, the supreme living entity. Narayana exists eternally and breathes eternally, and therefore dharma, the injunctions of Narayana, also exist eternally. So here also when Prabhupada says in Bhagavad Gita purport that only the Lord can manufacture a system of religion, it means only the Lord can manifest a system of religion, not creation out of zero, not like that. The Vedas are also accepted as originally spoken by the Lord himself to Brahma from within his heart. Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. Therefore, the principles of dharma or religion are the direct orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These principles are clearly indicated throughout the Bhagavad Gita. The purpose of the Vedas is to establish such principles under the order of the Supreme Lord, and the Lord directly orders at the end of the Gita that the highest principle of religion is to surrender unto him only and nothing more. The Vedic principles push one towards complete surrender unto him. So in other words, like here in this sheet which I keep showing all the time, notice here that we start with Gunibhuta Bhakti, minimal Bhakti. Then the next step is Pradhanibhuta Bhakti, maximal Bhakti, second stage. Then the third stage is complete engagement, surrender. Surrender in the literal sense, you actually give up everything else and you only do devotion service. So it pushes you up, up, up. Okay. So when we talk about following dharma, we are actually talking about the process by which we move up. Just like when you say, my son is going to school. It means that he's at one educational level now, and next year he is going to the next level. Suppose he's in the 4th standard, and next year also is in 4th standard, and the next year also is in 4th standard. Every year is in 4th standard, and he says, I like 4th standard very much. Then there's something wrong. He's not going to the school in the proper way. Similarly, when you say, I'm following dharma means, okay, fine. So right now you may be executing a combination of karma, jnana, bhakti with most of your time in karma. But it is expected that at some other point you will progress to, say, karma, jnana, bhakti with more time for jnana. And that at a later point you will come to karma, jnana, bhakti with more time for bhakti. And then you will give up karma. Now you have only jnana bhakti, but most time is going for bhakti. Then you will come to the point of bhakti. No time for jnana. this progress. This is what is known as following dharma. So following dharma is not simply routine, avoiding sinful activities, forbidden activities, and just doing something or anything that is taught in the Veda. It means progress. So when that progress, just like within the school, if there are the students are progressing, okay. But suppose there are some external forces which convince the students they should not progress, then it's a problem. Then the administration will step in. So similarly, when the living entities accept Vedic authority and they progress, everything is fine. But when that is stopped, then Krishna comes into the picture. The Vedic principles push one toward complete surrender unto him. Whenever such principles are disturbed by the demoniac, the Lord appears. In the Bhagavatam, we understand that Lord Buddha is incarnation of Krishna who appeared when materialism was rampant and materialists were using the pretext of the authority of the Vedas. Although there are certain restrictive rules and regulations regarding animal sacrifice for particular purposes in the Vedas, people of demonic tendencies still took to animal sacrifice without reference to the Vedic principles. Lord Buddha appeared in order to stop this nonsense and to establish the Vedic principles of non-violence. Therefore, each and every avatar or incarnation of the Lord has a particular mission, and they are all described in the revealed scriptures. No one should be accepted as an avatar unless he is referred to by scriptures. It is not a fact that the Lord appears only on Indian soil. He can manifest himself anywhere and everywhere and whenever he desires to appear. In each and every incarnation, he speaks as much about religion as can be understood by the particular people under their particular circumstances. But the mission is the same, to lead people to God consciousness and obedience to the principles of religion. Sometimes he descends personally, and sometimes he sends his bona fide representative in the form of his son or servant or himself in some disguised form. So the Shaktiavesha forms, they appear outside of communities that follow Varnashrama Dharma. Krishna himself in his Vishnu Tattva form only appears within communities that follow Varnashrama Dharma. For other places, as Bhakti Thakur points out, Krishna, he descends in some Shaktiavesha form, which means that he empowers some living entity in order to help these people. So Krishna is bothered about everyone, even the souls who are below them. As Bhakti Thakur points out, there are various levels of humanity. Where the lowest level is just Vanya Jiva, animalistic life. Then comes atheistic morality. Okay. Nirishwara Naitikata. Nirishwara Naitik. Atheistic but moral. Then next step is Seshwara Naitik. Theistic and moral. Then next step is Dharma. That is when Varnashrama Dharma. That is the Dharma. Vedic Dharma begins with that one. So below that is called Upadharma, sub-religious principles. Krishna is bothered about these people also, even when they worship him in some manner that they know, then they will be helped. So for them, Krishna has a pathway by which they can also gradually elevate themselves over lifetimes. The principles of the Bhagavad Gita were spoken to Arjuna, and for that matter, to other highly elevated persons, because he was highly advanced compared to ordinary persons in other parts of the world. 2 + 2 = 4 is a mathematical principle that is true in the beginner's arithmetic class and in the advanced class as well. Still, there are higher and lower mathematics. In all incarnations of the Lord, therefore, the same principles are taught, but they appear to be higher and lower in varied circumstances. The higher principles of religion begin with the acceptance of the 4 orders and 4 statuses of social life, as will be explained later. The whole purpose of the mission of incarnations is to arouse Krishna consciousness everywhere. Such consciousness is manifest and non-manifest only under different circumstances. Okay, text 8.
Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkitam dharma samsthapanataya sambhavami yuge yuge. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to reestablish the principles of religion, I myself appear millennium after millennium.
Shri Vidyan. But your devotees, the saintly kings, appear in order to wipe out the rise of adharma and destruction of dharma. So why do you say that you appear in order to do this? The idea is this: there are enough Vaishnava Rajarshis. They can do this work. They can, when dharma is disturbed. Actually, that is the duty of the Kshatriya. The Kshatriya's duty is as the administrator. He is supposed to ensure that everyone follows his or her swadharma, that women follow their dharma, that men follow their dharma according to their varna or ashrama. That is actually the king's duty. So there are enough saintly kings, Rajarshis. They are also devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They can do this work. So why do you say that you appear in order to do this? So then Lord Krishna points out, my devotees are absorbed in relation to my form and qualities. They long to see my form and thus suffer from not seeing my form. I appear in order to deliver them from this suffering by showing my attractive form directly. So I appear to protect my sadhus, my devotees, by showing my attractive form directly. I also appear to destroy those performing evil deeds, dushkratam, persons like Ravana and Kamsa, who torment my devotees and who cannot be killed by anyone except me. I also appear to spread dharma, to re-establish the principles of religion means to spread the original form of dharma, pure bhakti yoga, with meditation on me and deity worship only to me and Vedic dharma as well, which cannot be spread by anyone other than me. These are the three reasons for my appearance. At those times when it is necessary, I appear. At those times when it is necessary, I appear. There is no impropriety in the Lord killing the evil persons, for by bestowing on them the bliss of liberation on killing them, the cruelty is transformed into an act of mercy. This is a special feature only for of Swayam Bhagavan. Only when Krishna appears and he kills a demon in a Swayam Bhagavan feature, then they get liberation. When he comes in the form of Ramachandra or other expansions and he kills them, they don't get liberation. They get some benefit. This is Krishna's own special mercy. Bhakti Nota. Investing my Shakti in all my devotees, such as the saintly kings, Rajarshis and Brahmarshis, I establish Varnashram. But my own personal avatar is necessary to protect the greatest devotees from the non-devotees, from the grief of longing to see me, thus becoming a Yugavatar. I protect the devotees. I deliver the devotees from grief. Separating the non-devotees, I arrange for them destructible dharma, meaning that here the word dharma means quality. I give them the quality of being destructible, which means I destroy them. Killing Ravana and Kamsa, I deliver them. Preaching bhakti with hearing and chanting, I establish the Jiva's eternal swadharma. Yuga after yuga, I appear. By this, even in Kali Yuga, I make my appearance. This you should accept. The Kali Yuga avatar will establish the highest, rarest frame of simply by kirtan, etc. There is no other purport to this. Though this avatar, without doubt, is the best of avatars, it is to be hidden from general people. My greatest devotees naturally will be attracted by this avatar particularly. You also will be seen to manifest in order to help. This avatar is to deliver the people of Kali. This avatar, to deliver the people of Kali, does not destroy demons, but destroy the sins of the wicked. That is the great secret of this hidden avatar, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There are sufficient indications in Srimad Bhagavatam and elsewhere that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not just a devotee of Krishna, he is Krishna himself. So it is natural that Krishna's hidden incarnation is also indicated here. Okay, someone should read out this book.
According to Bhagavad Gita, a part of holy man is a man in Krishna consciousness. A person may appear to be he has the qualifications of Krishna consciousness wholly and fully, he to be understood to be sadhu. and this freedom applies to those who have not cared for the different topics. Such miscreants or Duskritam are described as the foolish and the lowest of mankind, even though they may be separated with abundant education. Whereas the person who is on 100 with 100% engaged with Krishna consciousness is accepted as a star, even though such a person may be neither a scholar nor a rich person. As far as the artistic are concerned, it is not necessary for the Supreme Lord to appear as he is to destroy them, appear as he is to destroy them, as he did with the demons Ravan and Kamsa. The Lord of many agents were quite competent to vanquish demons. But the Lord especially listens to appease his unalloyed devotees, who are always harassed by the demons. The demon harasses the devotee, even though the latter may happen to be seen. Although Prahlad Maharaj was the son of Hiranyakashipu, was nonetheless persecuted by his father. Although Devaki, mother of Krishna, or the sister of some, she and her husband Vasudeva were persecuted only because Krishna was to be born of them. So Lord Krishna appeared primarily to deliver Devaki rather than his son. But both were performed simultaneously. Therefore, it is said here that to deliver the devotee and remind us that human experience, the Lord appears in different incarnations. In Chaitanya Charitamrita of Krishna, the following verses, 1:20.64, summarize this principle of incarnation. Shastri Bhutu, Devi Murti, Prapancha Avatare, Sei Ishwar Murti, Avatar, Nam Avare, Maya Ti, Prabhyome, Savar Avasthan, Ishwar Avatari Bhare, Avatar Nam. The avatar or incarnation of body descends from the kingdom of God for increasing state. And a particular form of the personality of God is also descending is called an incarnation of avatar. Such incarnations are situated in the spiritual world, the kingdom of God. When they descend to the material creation, they assume the name of avatar. There are various kinds of avatars, such as Putravatar, Gunavatar, Lilavatar, Satyavish, Manvantara avatar, and Yuga, all is very much scheduled, all very much scheduled all over the universe. But Lord Krishna is the primal God, the fountainhead of all of God. Lord Krishna descends for the specific purpose of delivering the anxieties of the pure devotees, who are very anxious to see him in his original renowned pastime. Therefore, the prime purpose of the Krishna avatar is to satisfy unalloyed devotees. The Lord says that he incarnates himself in every living. This indicates that he incarnates also in the age of Kali. As stated in the Bhagavatam, the incarnation in the age of Kali is Lord Krishna Mahaprabhu, who spread the worship of Krishna for the Sankirtan movement, congregations and spread Krishna consciousness throughout India. They predicted that this culture of Sankirtan would be broadcast all over the world, from town to town, to village to village. Lord Chaitanya, as the incarnation of Krishna, was studied about described separately but not directly in the confidential part of religion, scriptures such as Upanishads, Mahabharata, and Bhagavatam. The devotees of Lord Krishna are very much attracted by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. This avatar of the Lord does not kill the Muslims, but delivers them by his cosmic mercy.
Now, coming back to this purport from the beginning, first point that Prabhupada makes is, you see, Paritranaya Sadhuna. Now, who is the sadhu that Krishna has in his mind? Is it a Jnani sadhu? Is it a yogi sadhu? Or is it a bhakta sadhu? The sadhus are meant to be transcendentalists. Okay. Who Krishna wants to protect, the Jnani sadhu, the yogi sadhu, the bhakta sadhu, or all three? What is it? So Prabhupada first of all explains this. Okay, wait. And for explaining this, he is taking evidence straight from Bhagavad Gita itself. Here, 9th chapter, text 30. Apichet Sutrajaro Bhajate Mamanya Bhat Sadhureva Samantavya Samyek Vaitavya. Now, this is Lord Krishna's own statement about who is a saintly person. A saint, we will come to this. This verse has not been properly understood by a number of persons. It refers to someone who is very firmly engaged in devotion service without deviation. Somebody who is completely situated in determination about Krishna consciousness. Somebody who is fixed in devotion service. He is so pure that even if he commits some sinful activity, forbidden activity, then he quickly becomes righteous. So he self-corrects himself. He doesn't repeat it again. Okay. So this kind of person is what referred to as Paritranaya Sadhuna. These are the sadhus. The sadhus who are not hypocritical. The sadhus who are so fixed in Krishna consciousness. So completely fixed in devotion service. Actually, it is referring to track 3 group. Those are so fixed. Their consciousness is just like that, just tight. They cannot think about anything other than devotion service. They cannot think about anything other than the goal of devotion service. These are the people who are the sadhus that Krishna comes to protect. Paritranaya sadhana. Vinashaya dushkritam. Who are these dushkritam? Who is dushkritam group? For that also, you see, here. Namam dushkritino mudha, apadyante naradhama, maya apaskrita jnana asuram bhavam ashiti. So we come across the dushkritinaha. These are the same as the personality that Krishna is describing here. Dushkritam comes from the word dushkrit, and dushkritinaha comes from the word dushkriti. Both of them mean the same in Sanskrit. So the people referred to by dushkritam, the dushkrit, the people who are engaged in sinful activities, miscreants. See, here also Prabhupada translates it as miscreant. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, who are lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender. So, to destroy these people, not only they don't surrender unto Krishna, they don't allow anybody else to surrender unto Krishna under their control. So, to protect these kinds of sadhus who are absolutely fixed in Krishna consciousness, and to prevent these miscreants, and dushkritam applies to those who do not care for Krishna consciousness. Such miscreants are described as foolish and lowest of mankind, even though one may be decorated with mundane education. So this is the 4 types of dushkritina. And these kinds of people, there are real characters like this, Ravana, Kamsa, and so on, who actually prevent people from surrendering unto the Supreme Lord. Like, for instance, Hiranyakashipu, he prevented Prahlad. Kamsa prevented Devaki and Vasudeva from serving Krishna. So Krishna comes in order to protect those kinds of sadhus from those kinds of dushkritina. The next point that Prabhupada brings up is regarding incarnation. And then he also says there are various kinds of avatars, such as Purusha avatars, Guna avatars, Leela avatars, Shaktyavesha avatars, Manvantara avatars, and Eka avatars. This is straight coming from Chaitanya Charitamrita, and it is summarized in teachings of Lord Chaitanya. There are 6 kinds of incarnations: the Purusha avatars, the Leela avatars, the Guna avatars, Manvantara avatars, the Eka avatars, and Shaktyavesha avatars. Krishna first incarnates as the 3 Purusha avatars. Purusha avatar means Karanodakashayi Vishnu, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. So then after Purusha avatars, so it's the next category that we have. Leela avatars we have. These are all Leela avatars. The Kumaras, Narada, Varaha, Matsya, Yajna, Naranarayana. Kardami Kapila means Kapila, the son of Kardama Muni. Dattatreya, Hayashirsha means Hayagriva. Hamsa, Dhruva Priya or Prishnigarva, who appeared before Dhruva. Rishabha, Prithu, Narsimha, Nrsimha, Kurma, Dhanvantari, Mohini, Vamana, Bhargava, Parshuram, Raghavendra, that is Ramachandra, Vyasa, Pralambari Balaram, Balaram, who was the enemy of Pralamba, Krishna, Buddha, Kalki. So they are all Leela avatars. Because almost all of the 25 Leela avatars appear in one day of Brahma, which is called the Kalpa. They are sometimes called Kalpa avatars. Out of these, Hamsa and Mohini are not permanent, but Kapila, Dattatreya, Rishabha, Dhanvantari, and Vyasa are 5 eternal forms, and they are more celebrated. Urma, Matsya, Naranarayana, Varaha, Ayashirsha, Krishnigarva, and Balarama are considered incarnations of Vaibhav. Then there are 3 Gunavatars: Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. 14 Manvantara avatars: Yajna, Vibhu, Satyasena, Hari, Vaikuntha, Ajita, Vamana, Sarvabhauma, Rishabha, Vishwaksena, Dharmasetu, Sudhama, Yogeshwara, Bharadvana. So each one appears during the reign of a particular Manu. Out of these 14 Manvantara avatars, Yajna and Vamana are also Leela avatars. Then you have Yuga avatars. In the Satya Yuga, the incarnation of God is white. In the Treta Yuga, he is red. In the Dwapara Yuga, he is blackish. And in the Kali Yuga, he is also blackish. But sometimes in the special Kali Yuga, his color is yellowish, as in the case of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then you have Shaktyavesh incarnations. As far as the Shaktyavesh avatars are concerned, they include Kapila, Rishabha, Ananta, Brahma. Although sometimes the Lord himself becomes Brahma. When there is no qualified Brahma, then Krishna himself becomes Brahma. This is actually very good news. He doesn't create a committee. So he will do the best, do whatever he can. If there is no person who is qualified, he becomes that. He takes that role. Chatusana, the Kumaras, who are the incarnation of knowledge. Narada, the incarnation of devotional service. King Prithu, the incarnation of administrative power. And Parshuram, the incarnation of subdues evil principles. So these are different types of incarnations. And this paragraph here this is actually a paraphrase of the 2 verses that Prabhupada is quoted in the purport, Gita purport. Lord Chaitanya continued explaining to Sanatana Goswami about Lord Krishna's avatars or incarnations, which are his expansions who come to the material world. The word avatar means one who descends from the spiritual sky. Avatarati iti avataraha. Avatarati. The form of the Lord who descends from the spiritual world to the sense perception of selected conditioned souls is known as an incarnation. So therefore, Krishna is also referred to as an avatar sometimes. In the scriptures, you'll find that. That is because Krishna is descended from Gauranga Vrindavan to the material world. Krishna is also descended. The one who is descending is called an avatar. In the spiritual sky, there are innumerable Vaikuntha planets, and from these planets, the expansions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead come into this world. That is this. The Supreme Lord's, the Shaktiavesh avatars are also called Anupravesha avatars. The Supreme Lord enters into the body of a Jiva and utilizes it for his purposes. So sometimes the scriptures also talk about that, like Parashuram. The Lord enters into Parashuram's body and utilizes his body for his own purposes. So now the Lord enters means from where he came. He came from the spiritual world in order to enter into his body. Only difference, sometimes he may come to himself in his Sachidananda form and he may execute some tasking. Or he may enter into the body of somebody and he can execute some tasking. Both ways he does. Okay, further details we study in Bhakti Vaibhava. Okay. Text 9.
One knows the transition of appearing and appearing. does not, upon leaving the body, have placed his birth again into the material world, but attains my eternal abode.
Let liberation, which is difficult to attain by numerous endeavors using thousands of practices, become easily available for my exclusive devotees. Through hearing about my birth and activities, I appear in this world for this purpose also. With this intention, Lord speaks this verse. So Krishna comes, engages in various pastimes in order to become the object of Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, and so on. So this is a special facility for his exclusive devotees. Actually, it's not, it's ekanti. See, the exact expression he uses is ekanti. As Sri Baladev Vidyabhushan describes in Govinda Varshya, the Parinishtitas and Nirapekshas, both of them are called ekanta bhaktas, one-pointed devotees. But the Nirapeksha bhaktas are called Parama ekanta bhaktas, supremely one-pointed, to the extent that they don't even execute the ordinary activities of karma and jnana, even when they are favorable for bhakti. The Parinishtitas, they execute the second stage of devotional service, where one executes bhakti primarily, and to a smaller extent, they execute karma and jnana when they are favorable, and they reject karma and jnana when they are unfavorable. They also reject adharma. But in the third stage of devotional service, Kevala Bhakti, one does not even do that. So they are considered to be supremely one-pointed. In the initial stage, when one is executing just minimal bhakti, he is just considered to be bhakta. That's all. He is not considered to be bhakta. The expression unekanta bhakta comes. Unekanta means not ekanta. Those who are in this stage, the first stage of devotional service, they don't have the right to focus on particular forms of the Supreme Lord. They have to equally worship and respect all the different forms of the Supreme Lord. Okay. I am the Lord of all, whose every wish is fulfilled, born in many eternally perfect forms, born with many eternally perfect forms, such as Nisimha and Rama. Just like the Vaidurya gem, which manifests many colors, a person should know that the birth and activities in relation to the respective devotees of such a Lord are non-material and eternal in the past, present, and future. We should furthermore have firm faith. We should know for sure that my birth and activities are spiritual, as shown by me in statements such as Eko Devo Nityalilana Rakto Bhaktavyapi Bhaktasridhyantaratma. This in the BBT version. There's a typing mistake here. Eko Devo Nityalilana Rakto Bhaktavyapi, and then it should be Bhaktasridhyantaratma. He should be indifferent to material logic. That person giving up his body does not again take a material birth or janam. He attains me, who manifest attractive activities relating to that devotee and manifest the form that he personally worships. He attains liberation. He who knows that my birth and activities are actually not different from Brahman. That is the person that Krishna is actually talking of. Tattvataha has this meaning because the Shruti talks of Brahman being Tat in such statements as Tattvamasi, you are that Brahman. This knowledge that Krishna is Brahman brings about liberation. The following statement would be contradicted if one did not gain liberation on knowing the Lord. In other words, only when one realizes that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only then he attains liberation. It is not simply by realizing that I am a spirit soul, or when I realize all the spirit souls are of the same spiritual nature. You need to realize that Krishna is the one supreme being. You have to realize Krishna's position, transcendental position. The logical arguments in support of the eternal nature of the Lord's birth, form, and activities have been discussed elaborately elsewhere and should be consulted. Someone can read out Bhakti not Bhakti.
He who understands this consideration of the tattva mentioned, that I take birth and perform actions by my achievement with Shastri, does not take birth again after giving up the shared body. Under control of my narcotic Shastri manifested through my faith in Shastri, he attains my eternal goodness. Those who conclude that my birth, actions, and body manifested in the world are temporary and material attain samsara due to ignorance. People paralyzed in karma generally are bound by such conclusion. Except for mercy of the devotee, they will not develop pure bhakti.
The Lord's descent from his transcendental abode is already explained in the 6th verse. One who can understand the truth of the appearance of the personality of God is already liberated from material bondage, and therefore he returns to the kingdom of God immediately after quitting this present material body. Such liberation of the living entity from material bondage is not at all easy. The impersonalists and the yogis attain liberation only after much trouble and many births. Even then, the liberation they achieve, merging into the impersonal Brahmajyoti of the Lord, is only partial, and there is a risk of returning to this material world. But the devotee, simply by understanding the transcendental nature of the body and activities of the Lord, attains the abode of the Lord after ending this body and does not run the risk of returning to this material world. In other words, when one becomes fully spiritual, then he can understand Krishna's nature. Now, seeing or understanding Krishna does not happen so easily. Even here, let me show you. Even in the current verse, notice the last word of the first line, 4.9. Evam yogeti tatvataha. Tatvataha, in reality. Okay, I'll show you another place where the same word appears. In Bhagavad Gita itself. Evam yogeti tattva, this is the current verse. Okay, look at this. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yadi siddhaye yadatam api siddhanam kaschin mam veti tatvataha. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So even amongst those who attain spiritual perfection, only rarely one knows Krishna tatvataha. So this is a very rare soul to know Krishna in reality. It is it's not a very common thing, because etam vibhuti yogam cha mamayo veti tatvataha sobi kalpena yogena yujyate natra samshayah. One who is factually convinced of this opulence and mystic power of mind engages in unalloyed devotion service. Of this there is no doubt. So the person who knows Krishna factually, he engages in unalloyed devotional service. Another place. Brahmabhuta prasannatma ashochati na kakshati samasarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. One who is just transcendently situated, once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Bhaktya mam avijanati yavanyas-chasmi tatvataha tato mam tatvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of God, is only by devotion service, pure devotion service. And when one is fully conscious of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. See, tatvataha comes here, twice it comes here. When one knows me in truth. So knowing Krishna in truth happens after Brahmabhuta Prasannatma stage. It is not something just by reading some books. It is Krishna is not talking of these people. You just read some book and then you understood that Krishna is transcendental, you have some theoretical knowledge. This is not that. Okay. So this should be understood clearly. One has to understand this fact with conviction, although it is incomprehensible to mundane scholars and empiric philosophers, as stated in the Upanishads. The one Supreme Personality of Godhead is eternally engaged in many transcendental forms and relationships with his unalloyed devotees. This Vedic version is confirmed in this verse of the Gita personally by the Lord. He who accepts this truth on the strength of the authority of the Vedas and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who does not waste time in philosophical speculations, attains the highest perfectional state of liberation. Simply by accepting this truth, on faith, one can without a doubt attain liberation. The Vedic version, Tattvamasi, is actually applied in this case. Anyone who understands Lord Krishna to be the Supreme and who says unto the Lord, you are the same Supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead, is certainly liberated instantly. In other words, when you pray to Krishna, you are that personality who is referred to in that Tattvamasi statement. Now that Tattvamasi appears, this is Shankaracharya's Mahavakya. This is great formula. He's got 4 Mahavakyas, and this is one of this. But the Vaishnava Acharyas have given multiple explanations to this Tattvamasi. And each of them point out that you are not actually God, literally, but you are qualitatively one with Him. You are fully dependent on Him, and so on. In the Madhvacharya line, they have given 19 meanings of Tattvamasi. And none of them, they're all different from the Mayavadi explanation of Tattvamasi. That will be a good book to them. The name of the book should be Tattvamasi. A solid explanation. I was very, very impressed. Very impressed, because they go to the actual Upanishadic passage where it comes. It comes 9 times in this. So Shankaracharya says it comes 9 times, so it's very important to understand that you are God. But then 21 times it says in another Upanishad that God is inside you. God is inside everything, God is inside the Atmas. So Ramanujacharya, that is 9 times, is 21 times. 21 times it is saying that God is inside everything. So that is a more important issue. So Ramanujacharya's Vishishtadvaita philosophy is based on that idea, that the Supreme Lord Narayana is inside everything. And he says, Ramanujacharya's explanation is very simple. That generally we identify the body and the soul. You know, when a person walks, even a spiritual realized person, he will conventionally identify the body and the soul. So like that, in the Vedic scriptures, when it says that the Supreme Lord, He is this body, it simply means that He is inside this body. Because when a deity takes full charge of something, then that deity is identified with that. For instance, there is Ganga Devi, and then there is Ganga Nadi, the river Ganga. Ganga Devi, the goddess Ganga, she is fully present inside this water of her river. And therefore, we equate them. The demigods have this power. They have the power to be present inside the substance that they are controlling. Like Surya, for instance. The Surya demigod, he is present wherever sunlight is going. He has that power. Or Agni, fire. The fire god, Agni Deva. He is present wherever that Agni Dravya, that fire substance is. So we identify them. But still we know that flame, and that is that God, that demigod. So similarly, Ramanujacharya says, Lord Vishnu is present inside this world. Therefore, this world is said to be Vishnu. Don't start thinking that therefore Vishnu and this world is literally identical. It is simply because he is present inside it, he is controlling it, therefore he is identified with that. So Tattvamasi is also understood in that way. So very interesting explanations come. And consequently, his entrance into the transcendental association of the Lord is guaranteed. In other words, such a faithful devotee of the Lord attains perfection. And this is confirmed by the following Vedic assertion. Tammeva viditvad mrityumeti nanyah pantha vidyate yanaya. One can attain the perfect stage of liberation from birth and death simply by knowing the Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and there is no other way to achieve this perfection. That there is no alternative means that anyone who does not understand Lord Krishna as a Supreme Personality of Godhead is surely in the mode of ignorance. Consequently, he will not attain salvation simply, so to speak, by licking the outer surface of the bottle of honey or by interpreting the Bhagavad Gita according to mundane scholarship. Such empiric philosophers may assume very important roles in the material world, but they are not necessarily eligible for liberation. Such puffed up mundane scholars have to wait for the causeless mercy of the devotee of the Lord. One should therefore cultivate Krishna consciousness with faith and knowledge, and in this way attain perfection. Okay. Any questions? Otherwise, we'll stop now. Okay, we'll stop with that. Ansha Karmuturu because of the Vacha, Padita Yo Vaishnavi Namo Namaha. So exam. Look at it.